All right, we're back. We're back. Everybody can hear me now? I hate saying that line.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So we're back live. By the way, I'm a lawyer, not an IT professional, so bear with me here. All right, so they're telling me I got to do it a different way. So, next slide. Who is this guy? Again, Tony Jorgensen, Jorgensen Law Firm, 89 Oak Street. Been practicing for 21 years in Hartford. My primary practice areas are business law, commercial financing, real estate, and litigation. Enough about me. Let's get to disclaimers. I'm a lawyer, so I have to have a disclaimer. A couple disclaimers for you. Anything I say today is for your informational purposes only. At the end of the day, if you don't hire me, you don't pay me or any other lawyer, you don't have a written engagement letter with your lawyer, then they're not representing you. So make sure that if you're seeking legal advice from somebody, number one, they're a lawyer. I know that that sounds right and funny, but a lot of people are going online and doing their legal research there. At the end of the day, if something happens, you can't sue Google because of something that you found online. AI falls in the same category. Not all my jokes are funny. You realize that already. And unfortunately, there's not a big crowd in person because I love calling on people. Enough for the disclaimers. We can't slow down because we got a lot of information. If I'm talking too fast, I apologize. I'm a fast talking lawyer. All right. What will be covered? I got my top 10 up here as everybody can see it. A little bit of echo. Hopefully we can get rid of that. I want to introduce you to a number of topics. I picked these 10 because I think they're the 10 most important. Selecting the right business structure for you. There's a lot of different business structures out there. You're going to see it online. You're going to hear people talking about it. What's right for one person might not be right for you. Commercial leasing issues and pitfalls to avoid if possible. The number one issue that I see with small businesses failing is with commercial leasing issues. There's a lot of reasons why. We'll cover that in a little bit. Contract considerations, make sure everything's in writing. People will tell you a lot of different things. Oral contracts, although some of them are enforceable, proving oral contracts is very difficult. And it's essentially a toss-up and you're leaving it up to the judge and whoever the judge is going to believe. I always tell people with contracts, never read a contract once, always read it twice, at least twice. Financing your small business, we're here at Headco. Headco is a phenomenal resource for small business lending. Obviously, borrowing money from a lender is only one of many ways to fund your business. We'll talk about that, obviously. Insurance, get it or pay an attorney later. I mean that sincerely, even though part of my practice is litigation and I enjoy some of those issues. It keeps me afloat. At the end of the day, I'd rather see my small businesses succeed and prepay their legal. I don't mean prepaid legal services. I mean insurance. Insurance is nothing more than prepaid legal. If you think about it, you're giving an insurance company money, they're accumulating that money, investing it, and then they're paying a lawyer to defend you later. Employees and subcontractors, it's much more than what you say it is. So some people say, oh, that person's just a sub, they're a 1099, I'm gonna give them a 1099. But the IRS might not agree with you and the Connecticut courts may not agree with you. There's a number of tests that you look at whether or not somebody is an employee or a subcontractor. Bookkeeping, accounting, and taxes. It's all about the Benjamins. We're talking about business. While some of you might get paid in cryptocurrency and other types, maybe it's a quid pro quo arrangement. At the end of the day, most people are working for the Benjamins. So you cannot ignore the money. I've seen a lot of businesses fail because of inaccurate bookkeeping, and you don't want the IRS or the state of Connecticut knocking on your door. It's never pretty when they do, and when they come hard. Intellectual property considerations. I always want to protect things that are uniquely yours. Everyone's got great ideas. The hardest thing in this world, especially with the internet, is to protect what's yours. My daughter has an online business, and she found a couple of people using her image, and it's really difficult to get your likeness back. Estate planning and trust, I could talk about that for a day straight, but it is important as a small business to consider estate planning. They always say there's two things that are definite: death and taxes. So you have to plan for the inevitable. Nothing lasts forever. And trust, a lot of commentary about trust online. It's not always right for everybody, but it's always important to know about it. Trusts are nice, whether you have a small business, you have real estate, but it's definitely a nice tool to use. And then we'll talk about some final thoughts as we move forward. First things first, am I an entrepreneur? Make sure it's what you want to do and what you're equipped to do. As I say, be honest with yourself. One thing about small business is you have to be willing to sacrifice and suffer, and I mean that, for a reward that you may not get for months, years, or ever. There's a lot of small business sacrifice out there, and it has to be something that you're really passionate about, and again, that you're willing to sacrifice and suffer for. It's not for everybody, and just because you're good at your craft doesn't mean you're going to be good selling your craft. I know a lot of people who are good at certain things. They dove into the business world and they got eaten alive, and then they ended up hating the thing that they were good at. So I encourage you to, have an honest self-assessment about that. I also think entrepreneurship is about personality. I don't follow rules very well, if at all. So entrepreneurship was perfect for me. I make my own rules, and I'm comfortable in that space. If you're a rule follower and you're more comfortable kind of in a more rigid and structured environment, entrepreneurship may not be for you. Not saying it isn't, I'm just saying it may not be. So look in the mirror, and if you're married, you better ask. I'm not joking about that. Small business is a sacrifice. If you're married, there's going to be many long nights, late nights, and so forth. And to some degree, if you're honest, you're going to be neglecting your spouse, and unfortunately, time away from the kids and other loved ones. So again, like I said, you do suffer, and there is a sacrifice. There's also great rewards, so it is about balance. There's also a concept of working on your business versus working in your business. Most people who have been in business for a long time start to work in their business. And by in their business, they're just an employee going to work every day and pretty much doing what they have to do. They're not working on their business and continually striving to make their business better. If you fall asleep at the wheel in the small business arena, you are going to be out of business very quickly. It doesn't take long, especially in this day and age. Throwing out a book, and I hate reading. I do it every day, and honestly, I don't read for fun very often. But if you're interested in small business, must read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It just gives you a realistic self-assessment of what entrepreneurship is about. It's called the E-Myth for a reason, the entrepreneurial myth that everybody who's good at something can go out there and make money doing it. And I did say I talk fast. Any questions so far, online, in person? Everybody still awake? All right, good to hear. So selecting the right business structure for you, there's a lot of different forms of business. I'm going to talk about the ones that are in bold. The other ones, again, you can contact me offline. Sole proprietorships, partnerships, limited partnerships, limited liability partnerships. Anyway, I'm not going to read them all. You see what they are. Again, there's more. I didn't put the whole universe out there, but it gives you a flavor of what is out there in case you're interested in setting up a business entity. Sole proprietorship, it's just all about you. You're unincorporated. You're the owner. You take all the money, but you're also responsible for all the liabilities and losses. I don't recommend it unless you have, I was going to say a paper route, but not even then, because a lot of things can go wrong. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone. It's just too much risk. But I guess you could do it if you had a really small business. But again, as a lawyer, I never recommend it to any of my businesses. The advantages, ease and low cost of formation. Again, there's nothing to do. You don't have to file anything online to do it. You're just really starting up and doing what you got to do. A lot of privacy. There's no public filings. You can change into another entity form later, and it's easy to end your business. You just close shop and that's it. And taxes are a breeze. They're also a breeze with other business entities. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Disadvantages, again, the big ones, unlimited personal liability. It's hard to get money from anybody but mom. I'm skipping some in the interest of time. The business duration is limited to the life of the owner. So if you generate a business, you have a great business idea, and something happens to you, and you're the business, when you're gone, your business is gone. So that's an important thing to remember there. And self-employment tax, never fun, currently about 15%. Partnerships, volunteer agreement between two or more competent persons to place their money, effects, labor, and skill, or some or all of them in lawful commerce or business with the understanding that profits will be shared. Basically, you're all in together. I put a special note there because people always think when you see the word persons at law, the word persons means a human being. the law recognizes business entities as also being persons. So what you often see with partnerships is a limited liability company and another limited liability company working together as a partner, or a limited liability and the individual person. I know we haven't talked about limited liability companies. I just want you to remember that it doesn't have to be a human being. It can be a business entity. Advantages: low cost of formation, just like a sole proprietorship, a lot of privacy, as long as it's not, again, a company that's setting it up. You can change to a different entity form later, just like a sole proprietorship. Taxes, same thing. You're just basically filing a special filing along with your personal return. You can pool your resources with other partners, so that's always great. For my West Indian community, it's not that kind of partner, it's this kind of partner. And then no double taxation, which I'll talk about with corporations, and it's a very flexible business entity form. Disadvantages: it's just like the sole proprietorship. It's all on you. So if you own say a rental property, for example, that's an easy one to talk about, and you and somebody else own it together, something happens, it's going to be on you. Hopefully you have insurance, but if you don't, they're going off over both of your personal assets. They're going after them. Again, there's no separation between your personal and business assets. It's all together. Again, same thing about raising capital. If you come to Headco or other lenders, they're somewhat reluctant to lend to partnerships. The preference in all of the lending arenas is to lend that money to a business entity. And we'll talk about LLCs the most. Again, business duration is limited to the life of the partnership. So if one partner dies, one partner wants out. As soon as, if it's a two partners, if there's no partners left, there's not two or more, the partnership is dissolved. And again, you have the same issue, self-employment tax. I'm moving quick to get it all in. I'm gonna stop again. Any questions from the gallery? You can just make something up, make me feel like I'm not alone up here. Nothing?
I can't see the screen. I can see you, but the screen, I only see the top of it and the ceiling.
You can only see.
I can see the screen.
I don't see it. Maybe let me see. Yeah, I have
It
my
dep-
settings on.
Maybe it's the view. You got to change your view on your side. Are you on a phone or on a laptop?
My phone.
Slide your screen to the left or right.
Okay, thank you. I see it now.
You're welcome.
You want to do some IT work on the side at my firm?
Yeah, I'll send you my number.
Email me, otherwise I'll get in trouble. But anyway, limited liability corporation. This is the #1 form of entity. Everybody who's forming a business really out there these days is doing an LLC. It's just the most flexible out there. 10 years ago, the laws about LLCs were very vague. Today, the laws have been matured, so it's not, there's no uncertainty associated with that. It gives you the limited liability, and it could be organized for profit, and it can be formed for nonprofit, and it's probably the best form of entity. I don't do much other than LLCs these days. You're taxing, well, let me stick to the presentation. So advantages, you can see there's a long list. You can actually decide how you want to be taxed. You can be taxed as a disregarded entity, meaning the IRS doesn't see your LLC. The IRS sees you as an individual. So when you file your taxes, it's your personal tax filing along with the Schedule C, which is basically your profits and losses from the business. So again, that's a very beneficial form of business entity for that reason. There's not a lot of paperwork like a corporation. You don't need to keep all the fancy requirements that corporations do. Again, the pass-through taxation, they don't look at you, or they don't look at your business, they look at you. And corporations have a weird double taxation situation that you would avoid with an LLC. It could be formed by just one member. A lot of people out there think you need to have more than one. A lot of LLCs are just one member. And the members, again, have limited liability. Simplicity, going over again, the fact that it's really easy to do. You don't need a board of directors. I always encourage even my individual member, single member LLCs, still do an operating agreement, which is the bylaws for an LLC. The reason why it's not that you're schizophrenic or that you talk to yourself, it's because lenders will look at that and it shows that you're legit and that you're thinking about your scalability. And obviously you can change that as you add more members. Sometimes lenders will actually require by an operating agreement, even if it's just one owner. The flexibility and management purpose, basically you can do whatever you want as long as it's legal. So most state statutes say the LLC can be formed for any lawful purpose for which a limited liability company may be formed under the such and such state's Limited Liability Company Act. And the universe of what's legal seems to be getting bigger and bigger. Access to capital, again, with an LLC, a slightly higher level of sophistication, it's easier for you to get capital. And then low startup and maintenance costs. The filing fee currently, I believe, is $120, $80 for the annual report every year. So it's very inexpensive to form the LLC. You go really do it. I think it's a 2-page paper filing or 2 minutes online, filling out a couple of forms, giving your credit card information. The annual report is something that you have to file every year. I don't want to gloss over that because most people are going to do annual reports because they're going to do LLCs. If you don't file your annual report, you're in bad standing. If you're in bad standing and you ever have a legal issue, you lose limited liability. The first thing I do as a plaintiff's attorney in a litigation matter, if I'm suing a company, particularly LLCs, is I look if their business is current and they filed their annual report. If they haven't filed their annual report, I'm going to sue the company and all the individual owners. You lose limited liability if you don't file your annual report. Again, it's inexpensive. It's a small, basically a tax to do every year, but it's a small price to pay to protect all your business assets.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So you say you lose your limited liability standing if you don't file your annual reports. Is that retroactive to whatever you might have done? So if you did something to a client or whatever the case may be, and then you don't pay for your
It can be. Plaintiff's counsel. So what plaintiff's counsel would do, that's somebody suing you. You're going to look and you're going to say at the time that whatever incident occurred, you were not in good standing, and that argument is going to be made. Whether or not a court is going to award damages or not, and have you hold you personally liable, it's somewhat discretionary. The law is not 100% clear on that, which is why I encourage you not to have to run the risk of doing that. So I have a lot of clients, they'll call me and say, hey man, I'm doing a commercial loan. Can you represent me? And the first thing I do is I look at the annual reports because I know the lender's going to look for that. But I'm not only doing it for that, I'm doing it for the liability reason. You could have an issue out there. And if you file all your annual reports late, most plaintiffs' attorneys aren't going back also and looking, oh, you filed it 2 days late or a year late. So my point is you don't want to be late, but you also don't want to run the risk that somebody's digging around your stuff. Great question. Online question. Hands up. How do I figure this out?
Hi, I wanted to ask you about the operating agreement between the member and the LLC.
Okay.
Is it like an employment type of agreement, or what does the agreement entail?
Great question. And you actually got it right. The agreement, if it's a single member LLC, is going to be between the individual member and the company. Right. So the individual member and the company, but the individual member in their individual capacity, the individual member in their capacity as the member and the company. It's essentially the same as bylaws, but only for an for an LLC. So corporations have bylaws. It talks about, the ins and outs of the organization, how it's going to run, what's going to happen if this happens, all the contingencies, how the business is going to be managed, member managed or manager managed. It's going to say events of dissolution. So it's going to just say all the basic stuff about the company and how it operates. Traditionally, again, there's not a huge purpose other than legitimacy, and maybe a lender would want it if you have a single member LLC. So for things like that, it's the one time where I'd say, download something online, keep it simple, don't spend a lot of money. If somebody contacted me as a client and asked me for that, I would just send them a template and say, have at it without fee, because it's not something that really matters much, but it's nice to have. If you have 2 or more members, it's absolutely essential. I have a lot of married couples who go into business together, and I make them all get operating agreements just because divorce rate's high and you never want to have problems when it comes to your business. And if you're already, to use some street terminology, if you're beefing with your spouse, the last thing you want to do is be beefing about the kids and all this other stuff. If you have an operating agreement for your company, it's essentially a prenup for the business. So it eliminates that aspect of things. So great question. Any other questions? All right. And they tell me to talk fast, and I think I'm talking fast. All right, disadvantages, self-employment tax. All right, it is what it is. You can see that theme running through all of the entities so far. Can get complicated with multiple members. I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna tell you, I had a consultation the other day. Gentleman called me and he said, we're really having a problem with our company. I said, what's the issue? He said, one of our members is sleeping with the other member's wife. How do we get out of this situation? All right, so that's an extreme example. Everything on earth, if it can happen, it does happen, believe me. So you want to make sure that you're anticipating as many things as possible, but that there's a baseline agreement. You can't anticipate everything, obviously. I have clients right now that go to some of the bigger law firms and spend a lot of money for operating agreements. And I say, well, this is great. You know, it's 47 pages long. What's in it? No idea. So if you have an agreement that you don't know what it says, what value does that have for you? Because when something does happen, you can't even find the page where the issue's on. So I like simple. It should be readable for layman's terms, and it should simply outline the most important things. How's the business going to be managed? How are you going to split profits and losses? And if you know what hits the fans, how do you split the company up? Limited lifespan, again, it's limited to the life of the members. And difficulty raising capital, that really doesn't apply to the average LLCs right now, just because there's been so many changes in the law, but a few years ago that was applicable. Corporations, I don't want to talk too much because most small businesses are not going to be formed as corporations, but it's a separate legal person, as they said. You can have stock, non-stock, not-for-profit. There's the double taxation issue. Taxes on income out, and then taxes on earnings as well. All of the activities of the company are closely monitored, a little closer than LLCs by the state. And I don't like everybody looking at my stuff. I don't know about you. The advantages, again, going through quickly. Generally, corporation shareholders are not liable for the debts. Again, similar to an LLC. It's easy to raise capital because you can sell stock in the company. Unlike LLCs, it's hard to sell stock in LLCs. You could transfer the stock easily. The company will exist beyond the life of its owners. There's perpetual ownership. And sometimes, you can go get them publicly traded and get investors to come and buy in. Disadvantages, more time, more complicated, the double taxation. I don't want to spend too much time. We got a lot more to cover. We're going to skip the rest of the corporations and get into the nuts and bolts. All right, commercial leasing and pitfalls to avoid. All right, this is important stuff. With commercial leasing, like I said, less protection. If you're renting as a tenant in a residential property, there's a lot of protection, and they're looking, the state is looking to protect you and give you certain outs that you're not going to get in the commercial situation. The commercial situation, generally you have a 5-day grace period on your payments, and landlords are a little less forgiving. Try to avoid the personal guarantee. What that means is you sign the lease as the company, but if things go wrong, they're coming after you and your stuff and your house and anything else you have. So if you can negotiate an early termination, so in lieu of them saying, hey, we're going to sue you for everything, you say, hey, if I terminate the lease early, I'll pay you a flat fee of X, or in lieu of X, I'll pay you a couple months, whatever that may be. It's better than owing the landlord the balance of the lease money in perpetuity. Defending against landlord claims can be costly. I represented a restaurant recently being evicted. They owed a bunch of back rent. I list 3 things: evictions, collections, and PJRs. PJRs are prejudgment remedies. It's something unique to Connecticut. In Connecticut, it allows creditors, if the tenant has signed a waiver, to attach all your assets at the beginning of litigation. So I've done it to people that I'm collecting money from. I put a lien on your house and I put a lien on your bank account before I've even started the lawsuit. That doesn't sound very nice. It's not. So you don't want to be in that situation. So that's obviously a downfall of that. Hidden costs, common area maintenance. I represent another restaurant right now. The CAM charges were misrepresented. They're supposed to be somewhere around $1,800 a month. They ended up being twice that. Catastrophic for my business. Taxes and insurance are other things that are sometimes embedded in leases. ambiguous terms. It's usually drafted by the landlord's attorney. Very complicated language, very long. I did a couple deals in Blueback Square when they first opened, and the leases were like 150, 200 pages long. Rigidity. Landlords are not looking out for you, they're looking out for themselves. So make sure that you build some flexibility in for yourself. So maybe your business is going to consolidate, maybe your business is going to grow. Maybe you want to relocate and you don't want to be stuck in a 10-year lease. So the standard industry length is 5 years and then 5-year options to extend or renew. Maintenance and repair, who's doing it? Will rent be abated? What is your starting point on HVAC and other issues? So maintenance and repair can be very expensive. So you always want to make sure the responsibilities for those things are allocated and clear. You always want to also know if rent's going to be abated. Most landlords will say no. Abate means you don't have to pay. Most are going to say no, but everything's negotiable. And if a landlord really wants you, again, they'll be a little bit flexible, more so than you think. The starting point in HVAC, all I mean there is if you're going to be responsible for HVAC maintenance, make sure you get an inspection. A lot of times people buy homes. I see a realtor here. He knows that if you're buying a house, you want to inspect the HVAC system. No different when you're leasing, particularly if you're going to be responsible for that maintenance. Use restrictions. I've seen a lot of silly mistakes be made there. People will sign a lease, 5-year, 10-year lease for whatever. And then they realize later that there's a use restriction in a lease and they can't operate their business because there's a restriction. Sometimes it has to do with maybe a strip mall. You can't sell this because there's already a tenant that's selling that. There's a million different things, but make sure there's not going to be a restriction on your use. That use is not only with respect to the landlord, that use is also with respect to the municipality. So the town might say, nah, not here. Renewal and extension. So sometimes people want to renew a lease. Renewal means a whole new lease, all new terms. Extension means same terms, just pushing them out for another 5 or 10 years or whatever the term is. And legal review. Are you an attorney? I have a lot of clients who'll call me. They say, hey, I reviewed the lease. What do you think? I tell them what I think. And they say, oh, I disagree. And, I pray for them. So if you're going to make a mistake in small business, commercial leasing is not the area to make it. You're starting off behind the 8 ball. And I can tell you right now, I have several lawsuits pending or lawsuits that I've wrapped up recently. And it wasn't pretty for the tenants. It could set you back for a lifetime. I can tell you that right now. So don't make any mistakes there. Any questions? I know I'm going quick. Question, my brother.
You have a house that's worth $220,000. You get sued. How does the homestead law protect you in that area?
So homestead's more about bankruptcy. So in Connecticut, homesteading is a bankruptcy provision. If you file bankruptcy, you can protect the first, I think, $250,000 of equity in your home. It was $75,000 up to recently.
Only bankruptcy?
Only bankruptcy. So it's not a specific provision now to civil liability, which is why a lot of people are using LLCs, trusts, and other entities. So again, the reason why you want an LLC and you want to be in good standing is if something happens to your LLC and the house is in your name, they can't touch your house because the LLC made the mistake, made the boo-boo, whatever happened. Your house is in your name. You're not your LLC. You're you. So that's the importance of the LLC. Great question. That ties it back. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I hear a lot about people saying to move your personal home into an LLC, like to not have any assets in your name. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I hear people talking about it too. I don't really see it. I mean, I guess you could. I would be more of the thought process of a trust. An LLC is a singular benefit. If you're going to spend a little bit of money, I would say a trust because you can create the trust. You can move your house into the trust. You can move other assets. You can move accounts, retirement, whatever other physical, liquid or tangible accounts that you have. You can move all those into the trust and get a lot more out of it. If you put everything into the LLC, it's not really the right vehicle for it. And then there's tax issues. I think it complicates it. I would say a trust would be the best way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Tony, I have a quick question.
Another question.
Expense. Is there a way to set up a trust at no cost? I keep seeing this online setting up trusts at no cost. Is that a scam? Is that legitimate? Is there a way to set up a trust at no cost?
Have you ever been contacted by a Nigerian charm? No, I shouldn't go there. Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff online scam. I'm not gonna knock it because there are some good things that you find online. If you spend enough time on like Instagram and TikTok and all that, YouTube, you're gonna find some nuggets. But the first thing I learned when I was in college as an economics major was there's no such thing as a free lunch. And now as a lawyer, I know that as well. So there's nothing that replaces the advice of a competent attorney. And I would tell you this, and every lawyer around is going to hate me, but when you hire a lawyer, people say, oh, it cost me all this money. But again, there's a level of insurance that goes along with that because a lawyer is supposed to be a professional. So a professional screws up, you can sue them. And I know there's a handful of lawyers that sue other lawyers. I don't really like them, but there's the checks and balances. So if you're going online and, doing it yourself and something goes wrong and, you go home and your spouse, gives you the eye roll and the cold shoulder and the couch for a couple of weeks, that's a pretty severe punishment. You mess up with a lawyer and you just blame the lawyer, sue him. Don't tell any other lawyers I said that. Any other questions? All right, here we go. Moving on, contract considerations. Oh man, I got it. In writing, signed by the parties. Everything's electronic these days, that's fine. Try to sign every contract by referencing your status. So if you have an LLC, again, my preferred legal entity, sign it as member. So when I sign any contract for my law firm or my other LLCs, I say Tony Jorgensen, member. That way there's no confusion of what capacity you're signing. It's not me, it's me as the member. Keep it simple. I said that earlier about the 47-page operating agreement. If you have no idea what's in there, it has zero value to you. And I can tell you right now, the judges, they're smart and they're sitting up there. They don't want to read 47 pages if you have a dispute. They want to get right to it, keep it simple. And a contract is an agreement, meaning there's a meeting of the minds. If neither party knows what they're talking about, there's no meeting and there's no minds. Contracts connect you with some desired result. Make sure it's clear. Again, same concept there. It's got to be clear. Breaches and disagreements, they always happen. Arbitration clauses, mandatory. Mandatory arbitration is not necessarily bad, but you got to look out for that. Think about that. Certain businesses will tie you down with that. Mediation could be mediation that's binding, non-binding, same with arbitration. Alternative dispute resolution, that's what those things are called. I used to think I didn't really like those as much, but they're way cheaper. Cost of litigation is so high right now. A good litigator is going to cost you $300, $400, $500 an hour, somewhere in that range. That's a big range, but you see where I'm going with that. Form selection. Sometimes you do business every day. You go online, you might do an online transaction. You click and say, yeah, I consent to the terms. You may have just agreed to have all disputes with that organization just handled in Hawaii. Vacation, great, but I don't want to have to go all the way to Hawaii to sue somebody. And liquidated damages means nobody really knows what the damages are going to be. So because of that, you agree in advance of what the harm is going to be. If you buy a house, your deposit is generally deemed to be a liquidated damage. If you're in a contract to buy a house, you fail to purchase and you don't have a valid reason why you didn't proceed, the seller retains your deposit as a liquidated damage. NDAs, protect yourself before you spill the beans. If you have a great idea, don't go around telling everybody about it. All right. Make sure you get an NDA signed. It doesn't mean that they're not going to steal your idea. NDAs are breached all the time, but NDAs are good because then you can go enforce that NDA later. Non-disclosure agreement for those who don't know. Always assume the worst. I hate to be that kind of person, but I've seen a lot in my days. So you have to assume the worst and you have to make sure everything's covered. There's no way to get everything's covered, but as close to everything as you can. Think it through before you execute the contract. Don't reinvent the wheel. What the heck did I write there? Oh, but are you an attorney? All right, so at the end of the day, there are contracts out there, like I said, internet chat, GPT. That stuff is good, but they're not going to represent you in court. So my kids put me onto it a little while ago. I said, all right, this is kind of good, but it's not right all the time, and you can't rely on it because it's just pulling data. It's an algorithm. So if there's bad data out there that's not true, and it has a lot of hits, it's still going to pull that data and assume it's true. And again, you can't bring chat GPT up into court and say, good morning, Your Honor. and then ask the thing, what do I say? You can't do that. So again, if it's something simple, go after it. I have a guy who just opened up a home care business, and I said, hey man, I need you to help me with my contracts and my patients. And I said, have you ever worked for another company? He said, yeah. He worked for such and such big company. I said, do you have copies of any of those contracts? He said, yeah. I said, you're welcome. So there's no reason why. Those other big companies, guess what? They spent thousands of dollars to get those templates put together. Now, the risk is there's something in there that's not right. You can't sue their lawyer because you stole their template. But the flip side of it is they probably did, their due diligence and spent thousands of dollars. So again, if you have a question about it, you can always take the other template in, have an attorney review it for you. But again, sometimes reinventing the wheel is okay. Any questions? All right, I gotta move. Financing your small business. All right, number one thing, you know what I got number one is Headco. There's nobody else out here as far as I'm concerned. One-stop shop for a wide range of capital and technical assistance. All right, piggy bank. A lot of people start their business because they got a little something saved up. Great way to start. It's not going to get you all the way there unless you're Donald Trump. Now, let me not go to the Trump jokes. Applying is much more than the application. So people say, I want to apply for the loan. You can't just go in there and say, I need that money because, listen, that's great, but a lot more goes into it. Business plans, you got to make projections. You have to have your house in order. If you can't convince your lender that you're going to be successful with hard data or at least projections, you're not going to get a loan. Not reporting income means IRS trouble and less capital for lenders. I got all kinds of, mostly contractors. I don't want to knock the contractors. A lot of contractors out there and other businesses, restaurants, for example, they don't report all their income. So it's, yeah, I didn't pay taxes. But guess what? When you go into a lender and they say, well, how much money did you make last year? If you underreported your income, on paper, your income's lower. What does that mean? You're going to get smaller loan amount. So there's always, there's always a consequence for every action. What am I using the funds for and how much do I need? Term loans, lines of credit. Now there's certain things that you want to use a term loan for and certain things for a line of credit. If you're trying to just supplement your payroll, somebody asked me about payroll earlier. If you're trying to supplement your payroll and you have a little bit of volatility there, maybe you do some state work and they pay you whenever they want, you can get a line of credit. You tap the line of credit when you need to, it ties you over, and then you pay the line back. Term loans, maybe you're buying some fixed assets. Maybe you're a paver and you need to buy some new paving equipment. So that's a cost that you could drop the money or grab the money initially at the closing with a term loan and pay it back over time. Obviously, the paving equipment is going to start to pay for itself. Credit cards, every small business owner's nightmare. I remember when I first started my law firm, I had no money. And I remember making payroll 3 times with my credit card. It wasn't pretty, but it is what it is. If you can avoid that, avoid it. Investors, hey, it is what it is. Sometimes you need somebody else coming in. There's 2 ways really to do it, main ways. There's equity, meaning you're giving them a piece of ownership in your business in exchange for money, or there's loans. They give you a certain amount of money and you pay them back the money with interest. Plan ahead. The worst time to go looking for a loan is when you need it. Trust me. It's the hardest thing because then you're desperate. They tell you 18%, you're like, all right, I'll take it. Obviously, Headco wouldn't do that. But again, you don't want to wait that long. If you are in the contracting business, for example, and they're saying, hey, can you guys get started in 2 weeks? If you have an open line of credit with Headco for $100,000, the answer is yes. If you don't have that line of credit and you're going to go apply for a loan with Headco, the answer is going to be no. You can't do the job. So don't wait until you need the money. Lock that up before. Angel investors, crowdfunding. Yeah, it works for some. I don't, it's unless you have a really good idea, the angel investors are probably not going to be talking to you. Everybody watches whatever that show is with those obnoxiously rich people who, try to buy up your company for nothing. But that's kind of, the 1%. There's no easy pill out here. You got to work hard for your money, and it takes what it takes. And grants, I told you my jokes weren't funny, but I was thinking, there ain't no grants out there. I talked to all these business owners. They say, hey, do you know about any grants? And the only thing I come up with grants is I looked it up. It's an English name derived from French, grande, meaning tall or large. There's no grants out here. The COVID money is not around anymore. So we got to get off that, all right? There's no grant money. And if there is grant money, it's gonna be gone quicker than you know it. You can't build your business saying, I'm looking for a handout. All right, it doesn't work that way. I'm gonna be real about that. If that's your business model, somebody's gonna give me something for free, go do something else. Any questions? All right. Insurance considerations, super important. I mentioned before, depending on the type of business, there might be a specific kind of insurance, but here you go. Malpractice or error of omissions, bonding. If you're a contractor, there's payment bonds, performance bonds. Payment bonds means, hey, you're gonna make sure this money goes through. Performance means to make sure you do your job. Workers' comp is important. You don't want one of your employees to get hurt in the job without that coverage. Business interruption, super important. If you're down for a period of time, there's a big construction project around my office recently. You know, we lost 3 days because the internet was down, that sort of thing. That was a business interruption situation. Wouldn't waste my time filing the claim, but if that interruption lasted longer than a couple of days, I would file a claim under my policy. Life insurance, super important as a small business owner. If you have other owners, you're going to use the life insurance potentially to fund a buyout. And not only that, as I said, if your only asset is your business that you're building up, what happens when you're gone? Your family has that income and then they don't have it. Life insurance is going to cover that. A lot of companies will try to use that as an expense to cover the life insurance for the main owners. Cyber insurance, that's kind of new. Hackers everywhere. Fidelity bonding, crime coverage. People steal. Everybody knows that. Commercial auto, a lot of businesses will have people going to and fro and using a car. As soon as people jump in the car in connection with the business, you need the commercial auto coverage and workers' comp coverage. EPLI, employment practice liability, there's a million things there. Everyone's heard of CHRO, discrimination claims, all that sort of thing. So that's rolled up in that. And then you have D&O, directors and officers. You got the business owners bundle, which is kind of a product that a lot of the big carriers will bundle kind of the most important things into a lower price product. And then health insurance, smaller companies generally don't do it. But it's always something to think about. Get insurance. I made that clear before? All right. Get insurance. Employees and subcontractors. Again, employee and subcontractor, more than just a label. You can say, oh, that's my sub, but the employees are people who you control their work. They have a regular pay schedule. You control their tax withholdings, benefits and legal protections apply as employees. Infinite duration, but no, most employment situations are at will, means you can get fired at any time for any reason. Tools and resources are provided by the employer, supervised by the employer. Employer is liable for the work of the employee. That's an employee. A subcontractor, they have much more control over what they do. It's usually project-based. The subcontractor is going to pay a self-employment tax. You're going to give that subcontractor a 1099. There's no employee benefits. It's usually a limited duration. Do this project and you're done. And they bring their own tools and resources and very limited training. And if the contractor messes up, they're responsible for their oops. IRS definition, just so everybody can be clear. The general rule is that individual is an independent contractor if the payer has the right to control or direct only the result of the work and not what will be done and how it will be done. All right, so that's how the IRS looks at it. Making a mistake with that could be very expensive. You could have significant withholdings liabilities for multiple years. If you have a 1099 employee or 1099 person that's really an employee and you have a dispute with them, they sue you for back wages, you're going to be on the hook for the back wages. You're going to have all the withholdings you owe the government. You're going to pay some lawyer a bunch of money to handle it all. You got the IRS breathing down your neck, and all of that is a distraction. So if you're not in the business of litigating and handling the IRS, it's going to pull you away from your core business. So make sure you keep those things in mind. Question.
So let's suppose you got a business and Headco comes to you and says, I got 4 guys for you, got $5 million insurance for these guys. They just got out of jail. We want to get these guys some work. No cost to you. Just take them. If you like them, you keep them later on. How does that affect your insurance? Like, are they your workers? Are they subs? What are they?
Can you rephrase the question and eliminate Headco?
Let's say you sent me. Right?
Eliminate Headco from that, sir.
Yeah, let's say you sent me some workers, 4 workers, $5 million insurance. They have $5 million of insurance. They're not actually workers. They're there for me to see how they perform. It's part of a city program, as I said. They're there for me to see how they perform. And then I don't tell the contractor that, I just tell the contractors I'm sending guys out here. But they're not on my insurance.
City program,
Yeah, because that's what it would be. It would be.
reintegration programs.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be something else. The point is that they're coming through a program with insurance and they're not on my books. They pay their workman's compensation, they write the check and give it to them under their name, and they're not on my books.
That's one of those things where I'd say offline, but my initial response would be that you're subbing those out, that work out to the city program or whatever the program is that's giving you the people, because the employees or the workers, because you're still kind of into the employee realm, but they're getting a paycheck from somebody else. That means you're off the hook. And the other thing I would say is whatever written agreement that you have with that program manager should say, for the avoidance of doubt, this will confirm that any, laborers that you send to me are going to be paid and compensated by somebody else besides me, whoever that may be. And none of those laborers will be deemed my employees, and you indemnify me and hold me harmless of any liability. Boom, done. I'm not even going to charge you for that one.
Thanks.
For those at home, he did laugh. All right, bookkeeping, accounting, and taxes. You see, this is the most important thing for small businesses. I do say my opinion. Other people think other things, but bookkeeping, everyday data entry to capture financial transactions. Accounting is looking at that more of an aggregate basis. Also preparing tax returns and performing audits. You really should have both. Most good accountants don't have time to do bookkeeping. There are professional bookkeepers. I just found a lady that I love platonically. I love her. She's phenomenal. She's out of East Hartford, and her name's Lori O'Neill, Innovative Financial Services. I'm giving her a plug because she's absolutely amazing. She found an issue that somebody else couldn't find for days, and her prices are phenomenally low for somebody who's as good as she is, and she's very responsive. But if you don't have a good bookkeeper, you can easily get tripped up. If your information is not accurate, whatever the accountant is doing later, they're building that off an inaccurate platform, and you could have tax problems later. That's never fun. There's two forms of accounting, cash and accrual. Cash is, hey, whenever the money comes in, you report it. Whenever money goes out, you report it. Accrual is, well, hey, when you earn it. So I could say, hey, you just hired me for a service. You owe me $1,000. You haven't paid me yet. On an accrual basis, I'm going to log that $1,000 today. Let's say you pay me in 30 days. I'm not thinking about 30 days from now. On an accrual basis, I'm logging it when I earned it. So most businesses run on a cash basis. I hate accounting. I love accountants. I let them worry about that. No commingling of funds. This is super important. A lot of small businesses get tripped up here. One of the questions I saw before the presentation is, do I need a separate account? You absolutely do for your business. I don't even care if you have a sole proprietorship. Don't mix your business stuff with your personal stuff. Never do that. Even if you're a landlord and you got security deposits, put them in a separate account at all times. Payroll, get a service if you can. Somebody asked me a question earlier about payroll. I have a service that I have 5 employees on it. I think I spend like $25 a pay cycle. That's every 2 weeks. They do all my payroll management and they do my quarterlies. $25 a pay cycle. You can't beat that. They're phenomenal. They have not made a mistake. I've been using them for 15 years. Company's called DataPay. There's another plug for you. There's others out there. Don't get me wrong. There's whoever the big one is that works with a lot of the banks. I had them a long time ago. I'm not saying they didn't do a good job. I'm just saying they charge a lot of money. Tax issues, income, sales, payroll, property, real and personal property. All right. It's important to make sure you stay on top of that. If you do, government agencies are eventually going to come looking for you, and it's never pretty. Don't dig a hole. You're not a groundhog. Stay on top of things. I know how it is. You have this one thing that's your Achilles heel. You figure, I'm gonna just handle this later, and then later is later. It's like a diet. I'm gonna start tomorrow. People never start. Don't get behind an accountant, because if you're handling accounting issues and it's contemporaneous, you remember, I remember that person. They bought 3 and they came in, they did this and that. 3 months from now, you're not going to remember any of that. So your information that you can recall about a transaction is super important. You're not going to remember that if you're a groundhog. Deductions. I've had some clients over the years that think everything's deductible. Everything is not deductible. Another reason to have a good bookkeeper and more importantly, a good accountant. There are a tremendous number of deductions, don't get me wrong, but again, you can't deduct everything. And accounting software is a must. There's some inexpensive ones. There's even some free ones. I'm a QuickBooks guy. QuickBooks Online. There's QuickBooks, the desktop versions. There's a number of others. I'm not advocating one or the other. I'm just saying it's very important to have that software. Some people have the spreadsheets. The spreadsheets are great. I think the software is better because the software is nothing more than spreadsheets made to look better on the interface. Intellectual property. If you don't lock it down, they're going to take it. Everybody knows that. NDAs, we talked about that before. Trademarks, I'm defining them, words, slogans, symbols, patents, inventions, processes, or designs, copyrights, original works of authorship, and there's a couple of examples there. Trade secrets, self-explanatory. Everything's available online. People steal everything and will even use your profile. Catfishing is real. Trust me on that. I told you about my daughter. I get clients all the time. It's very difficult to fight those battles and expensive. And once somebody's taken whatever you have, they're making money off what you have. It's personal to you, especially as a small business owner. So again, if you can lock it down with a trademark, a patent, or copyright, that's important. Your agreement should have clauses about that, confidentiality, violation of any of these intellectual property rules. You definitely want to lock those down in any agreements that you have. Because like I said, if it's not locked up, people are going to take it. Estate planning and trusts, fly through this, death and taxes. Don't put the inevitable on the back burner. We're all going to go someday. So you have to plan for that. Most small business owners don't. It's not just your demise that you got to think about. You got to think about disability and retirement. Most small businesses don't plan for this. You just think everything is a given. You're going to get up every day and be healthy and go to work. Life doesn't work like that. So prepare for disability. One of the things I didn't mention in the insurance is disability insurance for small business owners. That's out there. And also your retirement. You might just say, listen, I'm done. I'm tired. So just make sure that that's something you think about. If you have business partners, there has to be a mechanism so that you can get out. Otherwise, things will blow up. So I talk about disability and retirement. What happens if I can no longer work or don't want to? Buy-sells. Buy-sells are buy-sell agreements. If you have multiple members, one member wants out, you've already decided that member A wants out, member B's there. Member B can buy out member A for a predetermined amount or for fair market value determined by some, commercial appraisers. Succession planning is important. I know all of us think we can't be replaced, but the most important thing is thinking about your replacement. For example, law firms. The older lawyers who are around, they'll think of a young associate, bring the associate on, teach them everything they know, because they know that when they're older, in their late 50s, maybe they want to slow down, the associate's grinding it out. You passed on your legacy, and then you're able to continue to make money but not work as hard. At least that's what it's supposed to happen. And what is the market for my business? I just did a transaction. I helped a gentleman sell his business. It was a pizza business and the real estate. And he's simultaneously opening up another pizza restaurant somewhere in the northwest corner of the state. And he just said he wanted to downside. The business, very busy. And the section of the state he's in is really quiet. He didn't want to get out of the business entirely. He just wanted to slow down. Wills, right? Predetermining where your stuff's going, who's getting what, blah, blah, blah. Probate, everyone says I want to avoid probate because I don't want the government to take all my money. The current exemption is $13.61 million. So if you don't have $13.61 million, you're not paying any estate taxes to the state of Connecticut. All right. So everybody worried, oh, they take my money. There's probably some probate fees. Somebody has a $500,000 million estate. Okay, you got some probate fees. That might, amount to a couple grand. But it's not as scary as everybody thinks. The process is not as bad, although I hate probate. It's not as bad as you think. I do it. I just don't like it. So there's a bunch of standard forms and a lot of the clerks will work with you if you need help. Trusts, I talked about that earlier, avoids probate, ownership interest passes directly to the heirs. You got to think about the trustees. I had a client with a stalker, funny place to stop there. But I had a client with a stalker ex-husband. She bought a house in Connecticut and she had a couple of children that she wanted to do a trust. So when you do a trust, the trustee is the party whose name is on the title. So we formed an LLC who was the trustee, and she was the sole member of the LLC who was the trustee of the trust. So there's a lot of ways to do a lot of different things. There's two kinds of trusts that are out there, revocable and irrevocable. Revocable trust means you can change your mind at any time. Everything goes back to you. Irrevocable means you can't get it back. Whatever you're giving to the trust for the benefit of your trustees, they get that in perpetuity. All right. Again, I could talk about trust for 2 hours straight. I'm not going to do that. You're welcome. Life insurance and buy-sells, I just talked about that before. Whether you have a business partner and you need to fund a buyout, or you're a single member LLC, everybody should have life insurance, particularly small business owners. People in the corporate sector, people in government jobs, usually there's some form of life insurance, whether it's 1 year of salary, 1.5 times your salary. Small business owners are so busy making widgets and doing whatever they do that they forget to take care of themselves. It's like, doctors. You see a doctor outside smoking. Take care of everybody else but themselves. So make sure you think about life insurance for your business. Think about what it's going to take care of you and your family, or take care of your family when you're not here. Question.
You got a business partner, is it appropriate to put life insurance on him and he put life insurance on you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's good. It's key man insurance. And again, that would be nice.
Key man insurance?
There's key man insurance. So if anything happens to the two owners, you have coverage in that regard, but it's also good for the other reason, buy sell. So if your business partner passes away and his family doesn't have the resources to buy you out, life insurance can be used in part to buy you out and to provide for the deceased partner's family. So any questions online? Still awake out there?
We
We're
good.
here.
All right. You guys are the best. All right. So final thoughts. The two most important things to consider are how am I getting in and how am I getting out? All right. People don't think about that. All right. My business mentor, Jerry Long, he's retired. He lives in Florida. A phenomenal entrepreneur, phenomenal man. He always used to tell me that. He used to say, Tony, once you're in your business, the only thing you should be thinking about besides continuing what you're doing is how you're going to get out. If you're not thinking about that, you're messing up. Make sure you do everything you can to establish some sort of value for your business, whatever it is. All right. In my business could be my customer lists. It could be my employees. That has value. So if I were to pass away, another lawyer could walk into my firm right now and do real estate closings and small business law, and they wouldn't need to train the staff. I got a whole team of people who can do that. So that's the value. A lot of people come to my firm for me. All right. Well, let me be honest. For my team too. Probably more so my team. They love my team. But it's unique to me. It's the Jorgensen law firm. Other businesses, you might have a unique product that you have intellectual property rights over. Maybe you're a master chef and you make the best jerk chicken on earth. Well, once the recipe is around, it's around. It's like Prince and Michael Jackson and Tupac. Those families are still making money because of the music. You got to figure out what your value is. What do you want out of your business? Your business is a part of you, but it isn't you. I don't want to be too philosophical about it, but it's super important. A lot of people get burned out as small business owners. People get depressed. People use drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, whatever it is to get away. You don't want to live that life. You want to live a good life and you want to be happy. So what do you want to get out of your business? Decide that first. I see myself in this kind of house with this kind of car, taking a vacation once a week, got enough to pay for this, whatever that is. And then what do? You design your business around your life. Don't design your life around your business. I don't know if anybody ever said that before, but I thought that was a good one. Make sure you get all your licenses and permits before you're operating your business. A lot of specialized businesses require licenses and permits. So if you do business without that, on its face, you're going to get sued if you're not operating with the right permit. I got a lot of home improvement contractors. They're doing work without home improvement contracts. A home improvement contract that doesn't meet the state statutes is not enforceable. So you can do, in the first case in Connecticut was a big in-ground pool. So $300,000 pool. The pool company didn't have a home improvement contract that met the state statute, and they sued to get the money. They lost, and the people got the pool, and they got a bunch of damages. So make sure you're fully licensed, you got all your permits, and you're operating according to Connecticut law. Seek out people in relationships to help you grow your business. Who you know is more important than what you know. That's the oldest adage. Everybody knows it, but people don't really operate like that. People get tunnel vision. They get stuck. When I first started my practice way back when, my father said, you're never going to make any business sitting up here in your office reading everything. That's how I started my business. I was reading everything. So I was the nerd that everybody went to because I knew everything, but they were coming to me because they had real clients. I just knew the stuff. All right. You got to get out there and you got to meet as many people. And the people that you don't think are going to be valuable to you are the people who are probably most valuable to you. You got to have the courage to go up there and ask somebody cold ass. Say, listen, I'm an attorney in town. Is there anything I can help you with? Whatever it is. Don't think that those little things won't lead to business. Because if you're not going to do it, somebody else will. And boom, last one. Questions. Do I need to register my business within the state? This was a question that was sent in earlier. If you are any business other than the sole proprietorship, yes, other than some of the partnerships. So again, I suggest the LLC and you do have to register. What business taxes and fees will I have to pay? Well, it depends on your business. Traditionally, business taxes are quite limited in scope for LLCs because most people have what's called a disregarded entity, which means whatever you make on your profits and loss statement rolls over to your personal return, and you're just paying income tax based on that. How do I avoid financial pitfalls and make sound decisions about investments, suspensions, and growth strategies? Attend workshops like Headco's, spend a lot of time online researching, talk to people, network, talk to the people who are successful. This sounds kind of messed up, but I'm going to be real about it. I don't take diet advice from fat people. I'm just saying. I know it sounds a little shady. I can be shady at times, but that's one of the things I learned. Everybody's got all this advice to give, but if you ain't doing it, I'm just saying. How do I minimize tax liabilities legally? I think I added the legally part because I'm a lawyer. I had to put my little disclaimer. That's a whole ball of wax, probably too much for today's purposes, but I think minimizing tax liabilities goes back to bookkeeping and accounting. If you're not tracking your expenses and you forgot about this and forgot about that, then you're going to miss deductions. And if you're trying to do your own taxes, more power to you, but I guarantee you an accountant's going to do a better job. How do you protect your website? A lot of ways to get that. Copyrights. So a lot of those are offered by third parties and the copyrights are kind of built into the templates. I'll be honest, typo, sue me. But if you, even if that's happening, you might not even know about it. There's millions of websites out there. So, I mean, I don't know. Ask that question. Call me later. What strategies are you going to use to help protect my business and mitigate risk? Again, super broad question. We talked about a lot of them today. I would say just continue to educate yourself about your business and the things we talked about today. What areas should I be particularly aware of when it comes to risks and liabilities? We talked about all that today. Again, the commercial leasing is huge. Tax issues are super huge. Those are the kind of the big ones. And then insurance. Insurance addresses that word for those who are here. Liabilities, that's what all insurance does. So if you don't have insurance, the liability is going to be on you. And last question, why doesn't LeBron just retire? That's my favorite one. I put it in there just for a little comedy. I hope he does, because I'm about sick of seeing him. His hairline is on the top of his head, and he needs to get out of the way. All right, any other questions?
Not too much on the king.
I'm a Kobe guy, so even the king has to step down.
Two statements, not a question. Definitely that statement that you said, you know, you walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm a commercial broker. How can I help you? How can I be a student? That right there for any business is so valuable. You know what I'm saying? I just want to let you know that.
It works.
Yeah. And number 5, put a different play on how that question was supposed to be asked. That typo kind of changed the statement.
Oh.
There's not a comma after the ho. Hey, listen, I don't judge. Yeah, okay. I have OCD and he's pointed it out. I wish I had some white out. I'll put a white out W right there. But no, sorry about the LeBron comment. I thought I was gonna go over better than that, but I guess she's not calling me.
All day,
You got LeBron?
all day.
He's a crybaby though.
Oh my God.
He's so good, but he's crying.
That's what my boyfriend says.
He's so good. Why are you crying, bro?
He just has it all.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure being here today. I'm gonna go back. I wish I knew how to get back to. I'm gonna do it the embarrassing way. For those at home, this is the embarrassing way. Yeah, Who is this guy? How dare he talk about LeBron? But there's my information. If you contact the office, you want follow-up questions or anything, just say you attended the head code workshop. That applies to people who are here live, people who are online, or in the future, anybody who watches the podcast. I'm here to support the local Hartford County business community, no matter what. My biggest passion is helping people in my community. And the reality is I learned over time that if I help you, you're going to end up someday helping me. I see a lot of business owners, it's a cash grab, and I don't think that's the way it works. That's why we're not growing as a group. My position is if you help somebody grow and that business is successful, guess what? They're going to hire me the next day and my business is going to grow along with them. So it's about cooperation, business law, commercial finance, and real estate, and stand-up comedy. See, I know I can get you to laugh at that one.
I think we could get him to lose the stand-up comedy.
All right, not
Can you
stand-up.
guys hear me? Just want to make sure you can hear me. Oh, thank you. We're gonna wrap up now. We would love to have you rate the comedians.
Oh, Lord,
We're
don't
gonna
do
put the QR code in the chat. If you could just give us a Google review and tell us what you think about the session. We'd love to hear your feedback. We want to make sure you get everything you can out of our sessions. So with that, if there are no other questions, we will be signing off, but thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
And don't hesitate to reach out.
So data pay, right?
Yeah, data pays the.
I got that number.
You got data pay number?
Yeah, you got that. It pays